In this video, I'm going to show you how you can build an AI app just using drag and drop blocks and completely from scratch. And I built this tool in less than 72 hours and just using simple no-code tools like Softr, Make, and Airtable. And if you don't believe me, stay till the end because I'm going to show my exact playbook that I use to build AI apps and sell them for thousands of dollars. First of all, I'm going to show you how I came up with the name and domain, how designing the color palette, and how I created the logo. Then I'm going to show you how I built the backend and the frontend of the app. And last, I'm going to show you how I build the automations that actually make the app work. But before going into details in how to build the app, I'm going to put you into context because this client came to me because he wanted to build a transportation app that helps to connect drivers and transportation companies with executives and other professionals that need transportation services in the LA area. And when he came to me, he was a bit in a rush and we needed to build it as fast as possible. And now let's start with how we build this app. So the first thing that we needed to figure out was the actual name of the company, because the client came to us with a concept in mind of what he wanted to build, but he actually didn't know what name he wanted to use. And because of that, to find the perfect name, we needed to brainstorm. And there was only two conditions. And the first one was that it needed to be representative for the transportation industry. And then the second one, and most important, is that it needed to be extremely easy to remember. So in order to create the name of the app, the thing that we're going to do is to brainstorm with ChatGPT. Actually, this is the exact way that I use in order to come up with the name. So as you can see, the prompt that we're going to be using is going to be this. We are brainstorming the name of a transportation app that provides private ride services in the USA. The concept of this prompt is that probably we're not going to get a perfect name at the first chance, but then we're going to find a name that we're going to be able to iterate from, okay? So I'm going to see how it works, and then I'm going to see how good or bad are the names that we come up with, okay? As you can see, we have ShareLX, Hopsy, Quickly, Trevo, Vumi, Routio, and like those are some solid good names, okay? But indeed, the name that we actually came up with was actually RANS, because it's a short name, it's easy to remember, and it's related with the industry. That basically were the two main requirements that we needed for the name, okay? So once we have the name that is going to be RANS, we need to go to find a new logo. And what I did here in this case was to find inspiration in Luca. As you can see here, that is basically an AI generated. And in this case, I was using Luca, but to be honest, there is tons of them, so you can use any of them. And what I wanted to achieve by using Luca was not to find the perfect logo that we were going to use for the company, but to find a logo that then we can adapt, okay? And actually how Luca helped me was basically identifying the font that I wanted to use, and then once I had the font that I wanted to use, I basically created it in Canva. And as you can see, this is the logo that finally we came up with. And now that we came up with the name and with the logo, the next thing that we needed to do was to find the color palette and the color scheme, okay? And for this, there is basically two options. The first one is basically coming to Luca, where basically we're going to be finding different color palettes. And actually, I love this tool and I have used it in other occasions. And the most clear competitor in our case was basically Uber. So what we did was to use a very similar color palette with blacks, whites, and then also some gray for the buttons and also for the shadows. And at the end, we came up with this website that, as you can see, is super clean. It's not complex at all, but at the end, it gives the feeling of and all the graphics and images have been generated with ChatGPT and Stable Diffusion. And then the graphics that we have over here, that as you can see, there is some little graphic elements like the dots in the background over here. We have created them with Canva using literally the free elements that we have. So now the next thing that we're going to do is to basically build the architecture and all the backend inside Airtable. And for this, as you can see, we use 7 different tables, but indeed the main ones are 5, okay? Are the drivers one, the passengers one, the profile details, where we keep all the details and all the IDs, driver's license, and basically all the documents that we need, and then the payout. Then we also have the reviews and the tickets, but these two are not 100% needed in order to make the app work. And let's start with the first one, that actually is going to be one of the most important ones. As you can see here, we have different fields. We have email, we have full name, then we have a link record to the rights assigned, then we also have the profile details, and then we have some lookup fields that basically bring the information from the profile details table and basically help us to see all the legal documents in an easier way. Then we have here if they have been accepted or not, the phone number, the vehicle, the driver's license, the number of rides, the driver level that basically categorizes in different tiers to the drivers, and obviously if they have a better tier, they are going to make more percentage of the ride. Then if it is a verified profile, like all the earnings, the net value, the main paid out, and basically all the different details that we are going to need. And here, as you can see, we also have a linked record to the payouts table, so we know which payout is linked to that specific driver. Then to complete all these fields that we have over here, we have the information about the payment methods, and in this case we're going to have PayPal, Venmo, Sele, and basically here we're going to have all the information about the different accounts. Now let's go into the passengers table, and actually the passengers table is also important because it's going to be linked to some logic inside make.com. So for example, we are not going to create a passenger every time that the ride is created, okay? So as you can see here, we're going to have some fields like email, passenger first name, passenger last name, passenger full name, then the rides that this passenger has, the phone number, the amount spent, the passenger rating, the average rating, and basically all the billing information and all the details that that passenger had for a specific ride, okay? And if, for example, the same passenger books another ride in the future, then what we are going to do is to override those billing details. So basically we keep the billing details of the last ride. And here, as you can see, we also have the Stripe customer ID, okay? Then we're going to the rides table. That actually is going to be probably the most important one, because this is basically where it's going to calculate the amount of the ride, and it's going to be the main item that we're going to have inside our app, okay? Because as you know, we have drivers, passengers, rides, the profile details, and also the payouts, okay? But the rides are the most important ones. Here we have this field, the checkout ID, that basically help us to see which rides have been paid or not, because then we're going to have an integration in make.com that basically is going to watch for the payments in order to discover what are the rides that have been paid, okay? Then here we're also going to have some rides formatted with different formats. So for example, in here we have like the ride formatted from airport to this address, and then here we have the passenger name and also the driver name. Here we have other formatting that basically is going to be displayed in other part of the app. Then the most important fields are these ones that are basically the link record to the passengers table, and then all the information coming from the passenger, and then all the details of that specific ride that we're going to gather in the form. Because with the form that we created in Softr, that I'm going to show how we did it, we're going to gather all these details that we need. And this means the vehicle that they want, and consequently we're going to assign a vehicle multiplier, because if they want a luxury sedan or a van, the multiplier is different. The service that they want, the arrival seaport, the destination seaport, the flight, and basically all the details that we're going to need in order to calculate the amount of a ride, because the ride is going to be calculated completely automatically based on the miles or based on the hours that the ride is going to have. So as you can see here, we have all the information, including the number of persons, the luggage units, if we have some additional details for the luggage, then also the flight details, the pickup time formatted. So basically it's displayed in a nicer way inside our app. Then the right amount, and also who is the driver that actually requested that specific drive, and basically some other details that are going to be important. For example, the Stripe payment link that we are going to send it to the passenger, then the invoice, and then some other important details that are going to be the billing address, if it's purchasing as a business, the company name, the tax ID. And then in case it's a flight, we're also going to have some important fields over here, like the date and time that the flight departures and the date and time that the flight arrives, okay? And here we're going to see the flight duration, the minutes to arrival, that is basically the minutes that we have until the flight arrives, because this is going to trigger some automation. And as you can see here, we have many different fields that are going to make the experience of the driver way easier, because they are going to have all the information displayed on the app. Then in the profile details, what we're going to do is to gather all the legal information that we're going to need from that specific driver. So for example, we're going to have the driver email, the driver that is linked to the driver string, and then basically all the legal information like the driver's license, the insurance, the TCP, if they have airport permit or not, and the reason why they have been declined or not. And then the last important table, because we're not going to go into the reviews and tickets, is going to be the payouts one. And actually this is one of the most important ones, because the drivers are going to be able to request the payouts from the same app. And as you can see here, we're going to have some fields like the payout ID that basically identifies that specific payout, the payment method, if it has been paid in progress or it has been requested, and then basically some other information like the routing number, the account number, if it's a PayPal account, Sele account, or Venmo account. And then Then, as I mentioned, we also have the reviews table and also the tickets table, and then we also have the automations tab. And inside the automations tab actually is going to be one of the most important sections of the whole app, because from here we're going to be sending notifications, webhooks, SMS, and basically we're going to be waiting for all those specific triggers so we can do all the actions that we need, like sending emails, SMS, etc. And as you can see here, there is a total of 20 to 25 automations, and some of them are going to send an email when the application is received. Then others are going to create the route when the ride is about to happen. And then we're going to have many other different automations inside Airtable that are going to help to make the system work, okay? Now that we have seen how to build all the backend with Airtable, that is going to be all the database of our app, we're going to see how to build the front end. And as you can see, this is the front end that we have built. And we have very good quality images with some graphics. Then we have here some bullet points. And then we have here this form that is actually the most important part of the app. So now we're going to go back to Softr. And as I mentioned, in order to build a Softr app, it's very, very simple, because we literally just have to select the blocks. And those blocks are going to be dynamic based on the data that we have in our table, okay? So in the homepage, there is only going to be one block that is super, super important. That is going to be the form block, okay? And I'm going to show you what is the actual logic that we have here, because in the different questions of the form, basically we are gathering all the information that we are going to need in order to provide an estimation and a quote for the specific ride, okay? So for example, we're going to gather the information regarding the number of persons, the number of luggage, then the service and the car information that they want, then the pickup and drop off details, and then if they want any additional details or not, and as well as the billing details. And for example, in the contact information, as you can see in the first stage of the form, we're going to see if the person that is actually making the purchase is as an individual or is a business, okay? And depending if it is an individual or it's a business, as you can see, we're going to be showing different blocks. So as you can see here, there is going to be contact information, then number of persons, then number of luggage, and all these different blocks and all these different questions that we have over here are going to be variable depending on how the customers and how the passengers actually fill the form, okay? So for example, here in the pickup and drop off details, basically we are only going to show the specific fields that we need. So for example, if someone wants a service that requires a pickup point, then we're only going to show this field if the type of service is to airport, to seaport, point to point, round trip, or curbside pickup, okay? And another example is with the destination airport, that in this case we're only going to show it if the person selects actually one of the services that include to airport, seaport to airport, or airport to airport, okay? And depending on each one of the specific services that the passenger selects, we're going to be showing one blocks or another, okay? Then another thing that is very important is that here we're going to be sending our responses to a webhook image, okay? And then this webhook image, I'm going to be showing to you how to set it up. And with this webhook that we have over here, what we need to do is that in the questions we're going to have this field map to pickup location. And this means that this is basically going to be the key that we're going to be sending to make.com, okay? So for example, whenever we trigger this webhook, we're going to receive a parameter with the key pickup location and then the value, whatever it is, okay? And I'm going to say it again because this is one of the most important parts of the system. But first, we're going to be asking for the contact information, then for the number of persons, then the number of luggage, then the service information. It means if it is a service to the airport or from the airport to the seaport or whatever it is. Then the pickup and drop off details, that is going to have some logic depending on what the person actually selects. The number of hours, the arrival airport, the arrival seaport, that is only going to be visible in case that it matches the conditions, the drop off point, the flight number, and the day and time. That is going to be always one of the mandatory fields because it's basically where we actually have to select the pickup date and time. As you can see, we're going to have here another field that is going to be additional requests and then the billing details. And as I said, this form over here is literally 50% of the app and it's literally where I spend the most time, okay? But without the backend for the drivers, this form is not going to work for a lot, okay? So we're going to take a look to the backend, and this is going to be the personal area of the drivers, okay? And I guess that one of the things that you first notice is that here we have 3 different headers, but the reality is that the first one is only for the admins of the app, then the second one is only for the logged in users, and then the third one is exclusively for the non-logged in users, okay? Then we're going to have this block that is only going to be visible if the driver is not verified, and then all the other blocks that are going to be visible if the driver is verified. So in case that the driver is not verified yet, the driver is not going to be able to request or to ask for any trip. But anyway, let's go to the other 50% of the app that are basically the list blocks, okay? Because as I said, all these blocks are literally drag and drop, and in case that we want to add one of these blocks, basically we just need to click here in add block. And in this case, the block that we have been using is basically this one that we have over here. Once we add it, the only thing that we literally need to do is to map it with our specific table that is going to be, in this case, the rights, and then we just need to map it with the right fields, okay? And as you can see, it's going to auto-select most of them, okay? Then the only thing that we need to do is to remap them here properly and basically map the fields correctly that we have in Airtable. And as you can imagine, the fact of being able to create a dynamic block based on our Airtable data is literally massive, because this is literally what allows us to create apps with different functionalities and showing different data in our database, okay? So I'm going to delete this one over here because we don't need it, and I'm going to show you what are the specific list blocks that we are using, okay? So as you can see here, the first block that we're using is the rights table with the view not assigned, okay? And here is very cool because with Softr you can actually set conditions to see what records a specific user can see. And for example, here in this list block that we have over here that there is no records right now, we're only going to show those records to the users where is any of the vehicles that the driver has available in his profile. And then we're also going to have the condition that the ride hasn't been rejected by the specific user. And as you can imagine, this functionality is super important because it's going to help us to show only the relevant records to the specific drivers. Then as you can see, there is other 3 list blocks, but actually are more or less the same, because in this one is view assigned because we are filtering by another view that we have inside the table, but in this case we just show the records that have been assigned to that specific user. Then here, and in the same way, we only show the records that have been assigned to that specific email. And then in the last list block that we have over here, we're only going to show the rides that have been finished. And as you can see, there is even buttons that whenever we click on them are going to redirect us to the record details page, where basically we're going to find all the information in detail of that specific record. If we actually want to open that record details, the only thing that we need to do is to go here to the item buttons, or maybe to the item and click and select open details page, okay? In my case, I selected only with the item button, okay? So it's going to be the following. When the person clicks in open ride details, basically we're going to open this page that is the ride details corresponding to that specific ride that a passenger has booked already. And as I said, this personal area of the drivers is going to be super important because basically it's going to be where all the drivers are going to be able to request and to see all the rides that they have incoming. And the last part that I'm going to show you about this Softr app is going to be the sign up page, okay? Because it's also super important and it's something that is worth to mention. Because as you can see here, we have our regular sign up page, and this is pretty simple. But the thing is that this block that we have over here, that is the user accounts one, that is basically the sign up block, is connected as well to our Airtable database. And what happens here is that we're going to map those fields with the fields that we are gathering here in this sign up page. So basically when a user signs up in our page, then we're going to gather all that information in our Airtable database. And in this case, the sign up is only available for the riders because the passengers do not need to sign up. Actually, they cannot even create an account unless they want to become a driver as well, okay? But remember that when a driver signs up into the app, they are not going to have the profile fully functional, okay? Because before, we are going to need to complete the driver profile. And in the driver profile, again, we're going to have another form that also is going to be super important. Because in this form, basically, we're going to gather many other details that are going to be crucial in order to accept or reject a driver, okay? And the details that we're going to be asking for are basically the driver's license, the insurance, the TCP, and basically some other details that are going to be important. And in this case, it's just a simple form with some different steps, but actually there is not logic involved because we need to ask for all the different information. But obviously inside this app, there is many other different pages that I would love to show completely, but if not, the video is going to be basically 4 hours. And now if you are ready to blow up your business with AI automations, or you want to build an app like this one, just join the community in the description or book a call and let's talk about it. And if you're wondering, inside the community, you are going to gain instant access sense to pre-build automations that are going to help you to save hundreds of hours in your business. So you can really focus on what really matters, that is growing the business and not in the repetitive task. And now let's go back into the video. So now we're here in the last step that are actually the make.com scenarios, okay? And as you can see, there is 4 scenarios and 2 are the main ones. The most important one is this one that actually calculates the rights amount and creates the payment links. And then the second most important is this one that watches the payments and updates the status to paid whenever there is a payment of a right, okay? Then we also have these 2 make scenarios that checks the flights. So we calculate when the flight is going to arrive. And then also this one that is going to check all the emails that are incoming to our Gmail, okay? So let's start first with the most important one, and I'll show you how it does. As you can see here, there is 4 different branches, and those different branches basically depend if the customer is a new customer or if the service is a round trip, okay? But I'm going to explain how it works more in detail. So basically the whole scenario is going to start with a custom webhook, and this custom webhook is the one that I showed to you before in the book a ride form, okay? Then what we're going to do is to check if there is an existing passenger in our passenger database, and depending if there is an existing passenger or not, we're going to go to one of these different branches, okay? So let's go in this case where we have a new customer, and this means that there is not a passenger from before, and then we don't have a round trip. So the first thing that we're going to do here is to create a passenger, and basically we're going to create the passenger using all these different variables that we see here, okay? Here we're taking the passenger first name, and then here we're taking the passenger last name, and then all the different variables with the keys that we have sent in the Softr form, okay? Then we're going to create the ride, and basically we're going to include all the relevant information from the vehicle, from the service, from the arrival airport, from the destination airport, and basically all the information that we may need, okay? Then it's very important that we sleep the scenario for approximately 8 seconds, because that is going to give the time to update to Airtable all the formulas that we need, okay? So then here we're going to get that record, and then here with this HTTP request, what we're going to do is to first calculate the pickup location in coordinates. As you can see here, we're going to use this endpoint from RapidAPI. Then we're going to calculate the coordinates of the destination location. As you can see, we're going to use the same endpoint in RapidAPI, but the only difference is that we're going to use the drop-off location. And then with the arrival location and the destination location, what we're going to do is to basically calculate the distance between both. And in this case, we're going to use this endpoint over here. And actually, this is super important because basically the final price of the ride is going to be depending on the distance in miles, okay? So as I said, we're going to use this endpoint over here, and then we're going to input the origin coordinates and also the destination coordinates, okay? Then we're going to use this array aggregator over this field over here, and then we're going to set some variables that are the distance in meters and also the distance in miles, okay? So then we're going to update this record over here, and basically we're going to input the distance in miles, as you can see here in this miles field. And then as in this branch we don't have a customer yet, first we're going to create a customer, then we're going to create an invoice item, and here is very important because we are going to use the right amount that we have actually taken from this field over here, and then we're going to finalize the draft invoice. Then we're going to update the Airtable record, and then we're going to use a webhook response to the same webhook that we have in the Softr form to redirect to the Stripe payment page of that specific ride. And to be honest, this is one of the most crucial parts of the whole system because it allows the customers to check out in the same moment with an accurate quote based on the miles or based on the hour. And then here in the last step that we have over here in this Airtable update the record, we're going to update the record with the actual Stripe customer ID. Then the next branch is actually super similar, with the only difference that in this case we are not creating a new customer, but we are retrieving a customer. So the rest is exactly the same, but then in this module over here of Stripe we are actually retrieving a customer because the customer already exists in our database, okay? Now we're going to check the last 2 branches that are actually only for the specific case that the passenger booked the round trip service, okay? Because in the round trip services, instead of charging per mile, what we are doing is charging per hour. And what we're going to do here is that in the same way that we did before, we're going to update the passenger or create a new one, then we're going to create a ride, and then we're going to use this sleep module, and then we're going to use this Airtable get a record module. So first we're going to check the flights, and actually this scenario was a bit tricky, and to be honest, like it required way more job than actually I would like to, because this situation where basically we're waiting for the passenger in the airport doesn't happen too often. So in the same way as we did before, we are receiving the custom webhook, then we are getting the record ID, and then here it starts the crazy thing actually, because here we need to convert to UTC, then we need to convert to Unix, and then here basically we're going to use this request to Flight Radar API from RapidAPI, where basically we are querying the flight information, okay? And the goal of this request is basically to set the departure and arrival time, okay? Because here we're going to use this function over here, get this variable and then the one in position 1, and then get this variable and then the one in position 1. Then with the next formula, what we're going to do is to calculate the flight direction, and then we're going to calculate the departure time in UTC, okay? So as you can see, there is a lot of different operations in order to convert the time from one unit to another, okay? And then the last thing that we actually need to do is to format this time into Pacific time, okay? Then obviously we're going to update the record in Airtable, because what we're going to do now is basically set the flight departure date and time, and also the flight arrival date and time. And basically this is relevant because by knowing when the flight actually departures, what we're going to be able to do is to know if the flight is actually delayed or not. And then this other branch that we have here is in case that the flight is actually not found, that what we're going to do is to basically update the record in Airtable and state that the flight has not been found. So now let's go to the next maker scenario, where basically we're going to check the incoming email at admin, okay? And this scenario is pretty simple, because basically what we're going to do is to watch the emails that are incoming to a specific mailbox, okay? Then what we're going to do is to get the subject, search if there is a record with the specific ticket ID that we are having. As you can see here, ticket ID equal to equity ID, that is the variable that we selected here. Then we're going to use this set a variable module, where basically we're going to only obtain the content that is interesting for us and not the content that is after the signature. And then we're going to use this text parser in order to obtain the whole content. So then the last thing that we're going to do is update the record over here with the thread that we have obtained over here. So as you can see, basically we have the thread, and then from sender email address, then the date, and then the text. And now you may be wondering why there is two messages over here, but what we're trying to do is if it is a first time response or if there has been more responses in this thread, okay? It's not a really big deal, to be honest. So now what we're going to do is to check the actual last mega scenario that, as I said, is super important, because it's a really small scenario. As you can see, it's only 5 modules, but without this mega scenario, we wouldn't be able to catch all the new payments that are coming from the rides, okay? And what we're going to do here is to set a webhook in this Stripe watch events module, where basically we are watching all the invoice paid events, and then we're going to retrieve the payment intent over here, then we're going to retrieve the balance transaction, then we're going to search the record with the same checkout ID, the transaction, and this checkout ID is going to be a parameter that we're going to send in the invoice URL that is going to help us to match the checkout ID of the specific ride with the payment event that we're going to catch in this first module over here. So as you can imagine, this formula over here is completely crucial, because it's going to be where it's going to update to paid all the rides that have been paid by the passengers. And then here what we're going to do in the last module is to basically update the ride to the status not assigned. So basically the drivers receive a notification and they can request the ride in their personal area. And as you can see, we're only going to make this change where basically we're changing the status to not assigned, and then we're also going to include these two parameters. First, the Stripe fee in order to calculate the gross margin of the operation of the ride, and then also the completed time in order to know when the operation and when the transaction has been completed. And after reviewing all these 4 mega scenarios, we have reviewed all the automations outside Airtable that make this system possible. So that's all for today, guys, and as you have seen, we have built a fully functional AI app by just using no-code tools and drag and drop blocks. And I don't know how you feel about this, guys, but for me this is completely mind-blowing, because by combining simple no-code tools, we can build very complex systems and very complex apps that can be sold for thousands of dollars. So if you like the video, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to join the community in the description. And if you want to build an app like this one, just book a call and let's talk about it.